Hello, check one, check one, check one. All right, we'll see how this goes in a second. Whoop. Oh boy. Oh boy.
Hold on there, because we can hear you over the air. We can hear you over the air. Hold on.
Okay. 1 second. Just settling some stuff before we get rolling. Okay. Headphones. Sorry, Lady B, you were saying? Hello, check. Here's.
Hold on, because we can hear you over the air. Hold on.
For whatever reason, the mic is over the air right now, so.
It's your daily.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Your tie line 2 was over the air, so I had to turn it off back there.
No problem. Mm-hmm.
1 minute. Well, 55 seconds.
Okay. Good morning, chat room.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum. Things are going to start happening to me now.
Live exclusively for WCPT AM and FM in Chicago and streaming worldwide at chicagosprogressivetalk.com. Standing up and speaking out, here's Hal Sparks.
All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up.
To do the vibes.
Well, it has been a fantastic week in terms of political news and the rigmarole, the sausage making of politics. I'm sure many of you enjoyed quite thoroughly the hilarious nature of the Republicans after 7 years of trying to pass their Obamacare repeal and replace legislation. The center point of their problem with Barack Obama as a president, as a ruler, he took this thing that he created to try to reform the insurance, I guess, agencies' control over payments in regard to patients' care, because it's not really a health care bill. It was an insurance regulation bill in many ways to keep them from just kind of running willy-nilly off with your money when they promise to pay for your care, but you go in, you have cancer, and they decide, no, you had acne in high school, that's a pre-existing condition, we're going to dump you off. Oh, and P.S., once your kids get out of, they move out of the house or they go off to college, they can't be covered by your policy anymore. They need their own policy to be covered. And in that case, that means that we get to start them from scratch as a human being. And in a lot of cases, deny them care. Then there's lifetime caps, all this wonderful stuff the industry had before. And the Affordable Care Act, a certain amount of that, with good reason. And the Republicans, though, latched onto this as the single most important element of the Obama administration's, almost, they literally, I guess there was no grabbing your guns to repeal and replace, but the fever pitch around it, I mean, these people were cosplaying over this. They were showing up dressed as the founding fathers in tricorn hats with signs that said, "Keep your government hands off my Medicare." This was an extraordinary moment in American politics, wherein one party, almost completely alone, wants to reform the insurance industry. The other party wants to maintain the status quo because they like it. And again, the House would vote, pass a bill. It would die in the Senate, knowing full well it would never be signed by the president. But to repeal Obamacare because it was a disaster, it was going to implode, it was going to destroy the markets, that the premiums were going to continue to rise at a ridiculous rate. Never mind the fact, of course, that they always rose, and because of the Affordable Care Act, they've risen at a slower rate than ever. The idea that they rise at all was used as a marker point for the Republicans to say it's obviously a failure. And therefore, we must take this. And remember, this was this 14-month process of town halls and committee meetings and the old waving this around. Nobody has read this bill about the Affordable Care Act, which I think the final chapter was written by Sean Spicer, showing his pile of papers versus the Affordable Care Act's pile of papers, saying this is big government, this is what we want to do, and then being surprised that something was as complex as healthcare for 330 million people would be difficult to draft and put together. And in the case of the Republican plan, honestly, where there was none, they had the repeal part thought out. They had 3 buckets or 3 stems or 3 stages or 3 stooges. They had a very, intricate way that they were going to deal with the gaps created by repealing the Affordable Care Act. They were going to start from scratch. They were going to build their own thing. But the first thing they do was get rid of this thing, go back to what we had before, because it was so awesome. And what the Affordable Care Act was doing was destroying families and and providing all this unneeded care and making unfortunate middle-aged men having to pay money into the prenatal care buckets in terms of insurance actuarials. It was horrible, and it needed, it was forced down your throats after 14 months. They used this again, forced down their throats. We forced the Affordable Care Act down their throats. The promise, the Obama administration forced it down their throat. And they promised to repeal this and get it right for Americans, and then magically they push this bill through every single time. They do it 60 some odd times. And then when they finally get the chance, they have the House, the Senate, and the presidency, they can't pass it. They're not close at all. They're about 50 votes shy. A good portion of the extraneous votes outside that, the padded votes, knew it was going down, so voted for it simply because they didn't want to be in the president's bad graces. A group of Republican senators or congresspeople met with the president, and he got to have his little party where he went, everybody who came here, everybody in here was a hard no, but because of my magical negotiating skills, my snake charming ability, my ability to snake oil them, they all went from horrible no's, big no-nos, known no's, as Donald Rumsfeld would put it, from no's to total yeses. They're total yeses. They're yes. They're beyond yes. They're ecstatic. They're jumping up and down. They're like Tom Cruise on Oprah about voting yes because I am a team player and I got it all together. Okay. First of all, let's be abundantly clear. The people who met with the president were not hard-nosed. They were not even maybes. These were people who were flim-flamming the president by appealing to his ego, because this is an easy ploy considering who this man is. Because of the nature of the ego of the president of the United States, it is very simple for people who know they're not going to have a problem voting for this because of their district, coming in and saying, well, I'm on the fence. There's a lot of stuff I've got to deal with. It's very rough. It's very rough for us, Mr. President, but I'm going to stand by you because I believe in you. I believe we've got the right situation here. I think it's important that we work with you and we work to repeal this disaster. But I'm on the fence because my constituents. If you can talk me into it today, that's what I'm here for, Mr. President. And he went, I think we should do it. And they went, you know what? You're a magic man. You talked me into it, pal. Everything they say about you is fantastic. It's true. And because of you, I'm going to change my vote, Mr. President. You talk me into, you are a master salesman. And I'm not just blowing smoke here. You are the man. And he got to have his little glad-handing session, feel like he had convinced some people. These guys got to flim-flam the flim-flam man. They walked out. Some of them, even though they said that in the meeting, walked out and said they were voting no after the fact. It was a rolling game of three-card Monty about the ridiculousness that is the Republicans repeal and replace. I mean, it's just repeal. There is no replacement. The replacement plan they put forward references huge sections of the Affordable Care Act that it wants to keep. That's one of the reasons why the bill is so small. They don't photocopy it. They say it has to exist, which means that when Sean Spicer showed those piles, both have to exist. The Affordable Care Act has to be maintained as a standard, while the law curtails that the Republicans want to pass would curtail elements of it, not take the whole thing away, which is the problem that the Freedom Caucus had. And the big holdouts ultimately were the Tea Party fellows, the folks that ultimately their constituents are the ones who voted the most fervently for Donald Trump, and many of whom have been showing up at town halls saying, oh my God, I'm going to lose my health insurance if this actually goes through, this piece of garbage that you guys have not thought through, that you were surprised by the complexity of dealing with health care for 330 million people, while decrying complexity. We got to take a break. When we come back, I want to talk to you for a second about the Republican aversion to complexity. That there is something wrong inherently with anything that handles a complex idea with a complex solution. That there's not some sort of bizarre simplicity, this Occam's razor that will, just simply solve this highly complex issue, that they'll be able to cut through the Gordian knot, if I can mix metaphors, of the health care of 330 million people without going to universal health care. Let's be honest, that's the thing they're trying to tap dance around. And the one big suggestion that's the most popular in the Republican plan to repeal and replace Obamacare, the idea to buy across state lines, was originally present in the Affordable Care Act and was removed by Republicans and Blue Dog Dems. So no wonder the Freedom Caucus hates it. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. We are streaming at housesparks.tv. Come on over and say hi. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. It does us some good. And super chat if you're feeling it today. Thanks so much. I'm broadcasting today from Baltimore, and I'm heading down to our nation's capital this afternoon before I have two shows in Baltimore tonight. But we'll talk about that more when I come back. Hi, chat room. How are you? Good to see you guys. Let's see. What was that? What's the movie of the week? Oh, I think this is just A&E behind me right now. Pretty sure. Jen Becky, this is just an attempt to repeal Obamacare. You're absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. This was simply to eliminate the legacy of President Obama. They have no real belief that, no real interest in reforming healthcare, helping people, guaranteeing people coverage. None of that. It's nonsense. Let's see. Isn't there a Bible verse on that now? Yeah. Yeah, Carl, that Al Franken quote sounds quite close to something I used to say regularly on Steph's show and back on Air America when I was on there. Isn't that curious? Yeah, we love him. I know, 4927, Charles, we're almost at 5,000 subscribers. Yeah, Baltimore is a fascinating place. We need to paint that sucker. We need, we really, really do. Thank you, Sean. That's awesome. I greatly appreciate it. We hired us to help us to clear to you. Ricky Rome, right? The amazing thing. Okay, I'm going to play a piece of audio when we get back from the break, but these guys are Trump's kind of tap dance around it's not our fault because we didn't get a single Dem. First of all, they never asked for a single Dem because they knew they wouldn't get a single Dem. And a single Dem who voted for this nonsense would get completely ditched the next, and rightly so, in the next election cycle.
10 seconds.
Okay. I'm going to see if I can get the audio on this to be awesome.
This is Tom Hartman, and you're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, mega worldwide on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT.
So the president wants you to think that he worked really hard on repealing and replacing Obamacare, that he was all in, that they worked all night with that group of people, thank you, Billy, in the super chat, that they were all gathered in this room, just rolling up their sleeves, solving the problem that is Obamacare, dealing with the depth of this issue, that he was using all of his skills that he learned when the art of the deal was ghost written for him, that he brought all that to bear, and he solved this for the American people, and the Democrats just rejected it, and they were so close on votes, but if they'd just had some Democrats, it would have been the problem. Never mind the fact that they lost somewhere in the order of 50 of their own voters, their own Republican congresspeople, that they had to, in the 4 hours before the vote, they were rewriting this bill to make it vicious so that it would appeal to the holdouts, so that it wouldn't even pass as a health care bill if you read it anymore. Thank you, Seattle Susie Q. Thank you, Carl. The chat is, by the way, full of the most wonderful people here, and we always like to incorporate them into the conversation. Sometimes they call in. 773-763-9278 is our number. I'd love to hear from you guys calling in today as well. But I want to play a piece of audio that is, this is Donald Trump rationalizing the loss. There is no other description for this. I don't care about this art of the deal nonsense. I don't want to hear that, that the Republicans did everything they could. It's insulting to their constituents if these people can be insulted anymore. And Rocky Mountain Mike, by the way, thanks for joining us. Rocky Mountain Mike, many people know, does music and sends it about. Steph often plays it on her show. We've thrown a couple up on here as well. Some great work. So thanks for dropping by today in our chat room. I want to play a piece of audio for you right now. We'll see if this sounds okay. This is Donald Trump having his little post-game, almost like, we didn't make it into the Sweet 16, but that wasn't our fault. We just had to go up against we had to go against teams that we weren't prepped for, and it's not us. They had a really good offense. Yeah, so here it is. Let's see if we get this.
We were very close. It was a very, very tight margin. We had no Democrat support. We had no votes from the Democrats. They weren't going to give us a single vote, so it's a very difficult thing to do. I've been saying for the last year and a half that the best thing we can do, politically speaking, is let Obamacare explode. It is exploding right now. I want to thank the Republican Party. I want to thank Paul Ryan. He worked very, very hard. I will tell you that. He worked very, very hard. Tom Price and Mike Pence, who's right here, our vice president, our great vice president. Everybody worked hard. I worked as a team player and would have loved to have seen it pass, but you can't feel betrayed by the House Freedom Caucus at all. They seem to be the most difficult thing. No, I'm not betrayed. They're friends of mine. I'm disappointed because we could have had it. So I'm disappointed. I'm a little surprised, to be honest with you. I'm disappointed, but they're friends of mine. And they got on. It was a very hard time for them.
Yeah.
And a very hard vote.
Oh, totally tough.
I'm disappointed.
Yeah, so that basically, he's blaming the defensive line. This is we got some real champions on the team. Paul Ryan's our center. He's our we've got a couple of good point guards, but the rest of the team really just fell behind. And I don't blame them. They just need to work better at practice, and we'll go good at it next year. The absurdity that Donald Trump worked on this at all is one of the most singularly offensive elements of this. The illusion that this man cared enough to actually even make an attempt at crafting this is one of the most absurd aspects of this entire travesty. Now, the healthcare bill itself, right now, there's a little bit of finger pointing. They're trying to move on immediately. Watch for one of the reasons why the president wants to go to tax reform. According to him, that was the next thing. Like, he kept saying, we can't do tax reform until we do Obamacare. Well, now they've done it. They did it. It's done, because they never did anything. And then, but according to the House, according to Paul Ryan, borders are going to be the next big thing, and that is a classic act of bait and switch, move to a stronger, more divisive issue. The key to this, the key to the Republican strategy, at least in the House after this, is to move in the direction of xenophobia, is to start the process of demonizing one group and using that, because that's a winner every time. I mean, that's their 3-point shot. The president, on the other hand, owes people. As much as he says he, as a self-funded campaign, as much as he says he doesn't owe donors, he sure as heck owes the people that control the loans on his property. He certainly owes all the people that he is in business with, and he certainly, from an ego point, owes the business class, which and his own bottom line, tax reform. Because if he understand that if he is able to reform the tax code to benefit millionaires and billionaires, that's a lasting effect that is hard to undo after he gets out of office. That's the next best thing to a Supreme Court justice. Because if you can do a full march of the tax code and rebuild it, going back to an original the system that we're currently on is incredibly difficult. It is effectively it's very similar to the Affordable Care Act, the dismantling of the Affordable Care Act. It isn't impossible. I think Democrats actually could get a lot of Republicans on board especially when it came to deepening the tax code once they establish it. It'll start barnacling, much like the Affordable Care Act needed to add different elements to deal with different diseases, different pharmaceutical industry practices, to manage fraud when it comes up. Those kind of things. That's the constant maintenance of a bill, because if this is all legislation, especially when you're dealing with an organization that is taking advantage of people who are desperate. There's a lot of room for leaks in that dam, and so you're always patching them. That's the nature of legislation. It's ask anybody who the creation of the RICO Act or the idea behind most crime, fighting organized crime in any ways, creates a responsibility by the law to go, okay, now they figured out this angle. They're skirting the law by doing this, so we need to fix this and we need to add on to this. And this is the normalcy of governing and dealing with this. And this is how you actually get stacked regulations, for example, that the President Obama was trying to pare back. Not necessary. They're not helping. We've already got this regulation is covered by two other regulations, so we can eliminate it. They're just saying 2 for 1. Like it's like you're going to Costco. Like you buy your governmental policies at a big bulk store, like rolls of toilet paper. And that's because of their aversion in many ways to complexity. Their inability to process complex issues. And when they are confronted with complex issues, especially when in terms of business, they have an entire division in the company that they're in that deals with the complex issues. Donald Trump does not redline all of his contracts on his buildings. He has lawyers and guys who he's given generalized direction. He outsources that. He outsources his complexity and in the deals that he makes to accountants and lawyers. They create reams of paper on it. I would love to see the contracts on one Trump building stacked next to the Affordable Care Act. Heck, the iTunes contract is 30 pages long if you print it out. So the idea that healthcare for 330 million people shouldn't be complicated is insulting. We got to take a break. When we come back, we'll take some of your calls, 773-763-9278, and we'll address some of the conversations going on in our chat room. Again, you can go to howsparks.tv, like and subscribe on the YouTube channel. We'll see you right after this. But simple things are easy to understand. That's true. But simplifying complex things, it means that you deal with dying analogies that don't actually solve the problem. I'm wearing a lav mic because that's the easiest way to get audio into the Rode gear that I have. Because I'm experimenting sonically with different elements of what can go on, because eventually my goal is at the new studio is to lav mic and wireless headphones so I can actually move around while I'm doing this instead of locked to a chair. So it'll be a little more interesting for me and more exciting to watch than just a guy sitting at a table or a desk talking to you. It's a goal that I have, and I'll have a secondary shotgun mic and that kind of stuff running at the thing. That's what your donations to the show actually are going to. I've already organized part of the studio at the apartment, and it's looking good. So I'm very excited. Yeah, I saw that with the high-tech tablet. I know, exactly. The only other problem I have with the source on this is that my little input device has room for 2 mics, but having a cable that comes out that has a mic out in it, I'm simplifying. Yes, that's what I'm doing. I'm simplifying a very complex issue. All right. Medicare for all is not a complicated idea. It's a compassionate, caring idea that was worked just fine in other countries. I agree, Maureen, but we're in a lot of ways the Affordable Care Act and what the original architects of what would be Hillary Care were trying to put in was that instead of one singular federal system that could fail people because they can't, if it goes wrong, they don't have an option. The Affordable Care Act was going to allow you to buy into states' single payer. So Washington State, Massachusetts, Vermont, eventually California and New York have been talking about developing their own single payer, their own version of Medicare or Medicaid done there. And
1 minute.
Thank you. And if you could buy into that, if there was a problem with a federal system, fixing it is very hard. But if there's a problem with a state system, you could just move your insurance to another state. And that's the ultimate thing that you're dealing with. And then Medicare for all, in terms of the countries that run it, population-wise, they're a lot smaller. They also, by the way, have a much better history of maintaining their health. The chicken question, yeah. I have not moved there yet, Carl. I am in process. Thanks, Billy. What am I talking about?
Now back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, 773-763-9278.
So, in public, Donald Trump is apparently blaming the Democrats. In private, he is blaming Paul Ryan. According to the New York Times, publicly, Mr. Trump immediately blamed Democrats for the bill's failure, even though Republicans control both the House and the Senate. He also said he was, quote, disappointed and, quote, surprised that he had not been able to get more members of the hardline Freedom Caucus to sign on to the plan, and he seemed to acknowledge his lack of Washington experience. We learned a lot about the vote-getting process. I think he learned a lot about the not getting votes process, perhaps. But privately, the president said he regretted going along with Speaker Paul Ryan's plan to pursue health care before a tax overhaul, another of his legislative priorities. The Freedom Caucus, by the way, is blaming Paul Ryan. They think he sucks, and Paul Ryan is blaming the Freedom Caucus because they were the holdouts who ruined it. The largest group of holdouts came from the House Freedom Caucus, a group of about 30 of the most conservative House members. They use the word conservative. I wouldn't call them conservative. I would call them fanatics. They believe the bill did not go far enough and blame Mr. Ryan and other Republican leaders for not consulting with them earlier in the process. Apparently he didn't want to come down to the gun range cosplay banjo contest they were having. Political groups backed by the billionaire brothers Charles and David Koch, however, and other powerful conservative networks came out strongly against the bill. Matter of fact, promising money to people who voted against it and promising to deny money to those who voted for it. In this, several moderate House Republicans came out against the legislation after President Trump agreed to scrap a provision mandating essential benefits in an effort to woo members of the Freedom Caucus. I love how the Freedom Caucus, the idea that what they're against is any kind of government protection against life acting on you completely. Now, understand that these guys benefit from government protections all the time. They're decrying the president, saying you didn't build that, about the roads and power lines that connect your business to the rest of the world, and making it act like he meant your business was an out and out lie. They knew it. They knew they were being disingenuous about this, but they ginned up a lot of fervor over Obama saying you didn't build that, making the case that he meant your business when he really meant the infrastructure that you benefit from. And the insult to everybody else who paid their taxes and built those things physically as government workers, as government contractors over the years, the interstate highway system, the electrical grid, the dams, the waterways, all the stuff that have come up in building this into a country and not some random series of Ayn Randian islands that these idiots want to pretend they live on while benefiting from all the aspects of it. The Peter Thiels of the world, who PayPal wouldn't exist but for the protections of the U.S. banking industry and the intellectual property protections that the U.S. government provides to American industry. By the way, one of the reasons many quote unquote American companies that are ultimately multinational house their businesses in the United States, but make and do everything outside to maximize profit. One of the reasons why they don't bother to just move to another country is because they would lose those protections that are provided for by the taxpayers of the United States. Every other citizen who pulls their weight and joins the community of the United States, the United States part. The Freedom Caucus believes in this magical lone, Western style existence that because they take for granted all the elements that government protections that they get and government services they get. Because they take them for granted, they don't believe they exist in the first place. So the Freedom Caucus, living in their little Ayn Randian fantasy world, hates the idea that there should be essential services in anything that people pay for. They think that if you go to a car dealership or you go to any, and you buy a car via payments and you make all your payments, and then you show up to pick up the car at the end of having to pay for the entire thing ahead of time, the car company should be able to go, you know what? No, we don't think you're a good driver. We decided we were watching you take the bus, and we don't think you deserve to get where you're going. So we're going to keep your money. We're going to keep all the premiums you paid. We're going to keep all the payments you made, but we're not going to provide you with the service that we said because we came up with a reason after the fact. And the idea that a president or any kind of public servant would want to run interference on a shell game like that the insurance industry was pulling and driving people into bankruptcy, for some reason, this is a cause célèbre for the Freedom Caucus. This is where they chose to draw the line in what they think was important. This is where they thought we need to draw a line in the sand. We need to otherwise if we make insurance companies provide essential services as part of every insurance plan instead of just catastrophic, then the mitigation, by the way, of the cost of going to the emergency room and outsourcing all that other payment to everybody else, this illusion that if you have a massive car accident or a massive cancer, but if you cut your own hand open at work, and while you're waiting for your workman's comp or your company to cover the fact that a faulty piece of gear made you lose some fingers and therefore your livelihood, the Freedom Caucus would like you to have to pay out of pocket for your medical care until such time you can sue your way back into the middle class. That's the theory. Never mind the fact that while you are broke, while you have no money left because you spent everything just getting your fingers sewn back on and rehabbing yourself in this fantasy world that they live in, gutting your paycheck, putting your house on the line, and living on the edge of bankruptcy because of medical bills, that when you do go around to suing the business that you worked for or the company that caused the accident, if that in fact is how you're even going to pay for it, if it wasn't just the abstract accident caused by yourself, never mind that. But if you're going to go after the corporation that put you in this position, you're going to do it broke. You're not going to be able to afford the legal representation that you would need to fight a giant organization that has a team of lawyers. They want to pants you before you even get a chance, because that to them is freedom. That to them is personal responsibility. The business doesn't have any personal responsibility, even though they believe corporations are people. They don't believe that that person, that giant corporate, mech, that astromech, that the living brain inside this giant corporation owes anybody anything. That we're lucky to have them, and if they poison our rivers and streams, that's just the price of doing business. The taxpayers have to clean it up just because they're lucky to have these businesses operating here because jobs. That's the Freedom Caucus. Freedom, maybe it's an ironic title, and, they wear it like some odd hat. But it is their insistence that you have the freedom to die poor if you aren't genetically superior enough to not get your hand caught in a turret lathe that's malfunctioning. And that by the time you are rehabbed enough to actually go to court, you have no recourse because they've done tort reform. They've put a cap on what you can sue for pain and suffering. They put a cap on what you can sue based on your earnings, all those kind of things. That's the Freedom Caucus. Freedom to be adrift. Freedom to effectively not be a citizen of a first world country. There is something very like Yemen about how they think the country should run. Piracy and other countries using Yemen as a standing point for their rebels and for their death squads, so that they can claim innocence. That idea. That America to the Freedom Caucus is simply a housing piece of geography for multinational corporations to operate in a lawless manner. And that the best thing you can do for the citizenry is to allow sort of a P.T. Barnum, there's a sucker born every minute, Wild West business system to just run rampant. That there, and by the way, don't think for a minute that these guys aren't offended by Trump saying I'm free trade, but I'm fair trade. I believe in fair trade as well as free trade. Can't have both, but I'm saying you can. Just like everybody's going to be covered and much cheaper, and you're going to have much better coverage, and we're going to have so much better thing than Obamacare. It's terrible, but what we're going to come up with is fantastic. But you got to wait till bucket number 3, bozo, before you can find out what it is, because the bucket's empty. But by that time, you're screwed because we've already repealed Obamacare. Well, people weren't biting, and the Freedom Caucus itself, it wasn't that they weren't for leaving people out to dry. It wasn't for, making sure that we go back to a system where a cancer diagnosis is a guarantee you will lose your house. That wasn't enough for the Freedom Caucus. The Freedom Caucus wants poor kids to be born to a mother who didn't have any prenatal care, because somehow, even though they're quote-unquote pro-life, it's the kid's fault that he was born to poor parents who are irresponsible. It's the child's fault. That prenatal care and early childhood education is a punishment on the child that will be the only thing that will scare the parents straight. Never mind the fact that it's the only one damaged by it long term is the child. But your pro-life Freedom Caucus wants you adrift on an ice floe, because that's America. That we the people is an ironic phrase that you say in air quotes, that the Constitution is not a guiding point. It's absurd. We'll take a break. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, and WCPT, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Did my camera freeze in the middle of that rant? It felt like it just froze. Oh, is it clipping on the feed? Okay, so it's okay. Good. At least it's the CPT feed is okay. Am I overmodulating? Yep. Oh, yeah.
All your lines are full.
Wow. All right. Good to know.
You have a lot of calls.
Excellent. Excellent. I'm overmodulating. It's too hot. Too hot. Too hot to handle. The microphone that's on YouTube is actually coming from my Logitech camera over here. I like that, Mark. That's great. It's called the Freedom Caucus for the same reason a bald man is nicknamed Curly. The mic may indeed be clipping, although it may be the app that I use. So, yeah. Bring this audio down just a touch. Maybe that'll help us out. Maybe modulate it. Thank you, Natalie. Hi. Oh, good. Okay. Yeah, I brought the audio down on that one. Hopefully, it'll straighten it out a touch, or maybe I'll switch to the. See if I can switch to the built-in microphone. Might be the trick as well, instead of the Logitech. Maybe try that.
30 seconds.
Thank you. Let's see that. And can you guys hear Lady B? Just so I know in the chat room. Is it Amos from chat? Amos, are you there?
That's me.
Excellent. Hi, Amos. Welcome.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Go ahead.
Hello, Hal. Good morning, great one.
Thank you.
Yes, I want to talk about Trump and this thing with climate change. No, he doesn't think it exists. I think he says it's a Chinese hoax.
That's right.
And just recently, he approved the XL pipeline.
Yes.
And he said it was a great day for American jobs.
That's right.
And we know that this XL pipeline is really a boondoggle because we're not going to get any of the oil or gasoline from it. We're going to refine it, and China and other countries are going to get that oil, and we're going to be left with all the toxic sludge that's left. And it's not to mention the hazard of a pipeline break.
Yep. All those jobs are apparently going to come from nurses and doctors and yeah. Yeah, hearing people. And he has this demented leprechaun, Mick Mulvaney, his budget director. And this is one of his quotes. He said, regarding the question as to climate change, I think the president was fairly straightforward. We're not spending money on that anymore. We consider that to be a waste of your money. That's right.
To go out and do that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here in Chicago, there's an exhibit by James Balog and his Extreme Ice Survey team. I would suggest that the Mulvaney, he go and check that out. He thinks that it's not worth going off there and thinking about climate change because that's pretty empirical evidence that we're losing our glaciers.
Yeah.
And, the ramifications of all that's going to happen. And according to the U.S. Forest Service, just last week, 83 large fires were reported in 14 states. Large fires activities continue to be reported in the southern area. Currently, 17 large fires have burned more than 8,015 acres in Oklahoma. And other states reporting fires include Colorado, Florida, Kentucky, North Carolina, and Texas. And if you also look at one of the statistics, from 2006 to 2015, we had 10,868 fires with 312,000 acres burned. Now in 2017, we've had 12,176 fires with 2,102 acres burned.
Right.
So I'm wondering, why isn't it important to these people?
I'll tell you. It is. I'll tell you. Let me tell you, Amos. I'll tell you why it is important to them. Because wildfires raise the price of good real estate. It's not that it's unimportant. It's that they have actually found a way, in their minds at least, to benefit from the negative. These guys have figured out that in California, for example, California's real estate has just been blowing up over the last few years or whatever. One of the things that keeps that price high is more fires, because it consolidates the livable area of land and raises the real estate prices. These guys think, in their mind, in this kind of Atlas shrugged, gored out mountain utopia of the future. And when you and I hear that people in third world countries or living in coastal areas are going to be killed by the tens of thousands, if not millions, over the next 50 years, they say good. It's not that they don't care. It's not that they ultimately don't believe it. Yeah,
profit margin.
That's right. They actually think they're going to be the beneficiaries of this, and then they also believe, if you look at the Jim DeMints of the world, that God magically washes the sky with a wash rag every night. So Jim DeMint believes that the skies are the domain of God, and he'll just never mind, be good shepherds of the earth. Never mind, you have dominion over it and treat it like it's a beautiful creation that your creator gave you, if that's your belief system. Never mind that. No, God will magically make it good in this kind of weird Eden-esque thought form that Jim DeMint really subscribes to. He really believes this nonsense, that it will just automatically cleanse itself, that this just kind of happens and we don't have to worry about it. Never mind the fact that, like, and you know me, you and I are totally on the same page about climate change. That it is absolutely the scientific fact that humans are affecting the environment by our behaviors. But ultimately, I've said this many times, you don't need to convince Republicans to that climate change is real. What we need to make them aware of is that pollution kills people, and that it sends 100,000 American children to the hospital with asthma-related illnesses every year. And these kids are not all poor kids they would rather see gotten rid of. That people, human beings, that it shortens their lifespan. If you can find a way to make them selfish about it, then they'll do it. And that's what we're trying to do as liberals most of the time. Like, hey, we all breathe the same air. This is the environment you're talking about. Well, they don't buy that. But if you could say, this shaves 7 years off your life, dude, you might actually eventually reach them. But the reason they think, it's amazing that you bring up so succinctly the statistics and the point you brought up, but the reason that they're not more up in arms about it is because they believe they will be the beneficiaries of the shifting tides. That the real estate will benefit them.
It's the same concept.
Yeah, that it will wipe out people in the edges of India and Africa. Yeah, they're going to be on the up end of this. And that's scary, because you got to know who you're talking to. You have to know who you're negotiating with. When you're talking to a guy who was elected by people who he literally lives in a tower surrounded by French furniture that looks like it's from, the kind of furniture they were sitting on before they were all beheaded by everyone and saying, let them eat cake. A guy who lives in a tower with a gold toilet, that guy has a different perspective than you and I about the environment. The air looks pretty clear up here. It's down there near the car exhaust that you guys have a problem. But I'm in an Escalade. Even my car is higher than you. Is how they live. And by the way, the ones that don't live that way, the ones that are poor, the ones that don't live like Trump does, they aspire to it. They don't aspire to be well-to-do. They don't aspire to be successful. They aspire to live at that standard. Those people think to hell with anybody who doesn't as well. I'm going to get mine. This is the 50 Laws of Power crowd. This is the Art of the Deal crowd. This is the, own tons of real estate with no money down crowd. I don't want to have to work for this. I just want to, step on everybody's face as I'm crawling out of the bucket, because this is hell. This isn't a country with laws and citizens that you care about. This is The Walking Dead. Are All right, is Amos still with us, or do we lose Amos?
By Chris Hedges.
Oh, there. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, there you are.
Am I still here?
Yeah, you are. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to, just one last thing, I'd like to suggest an article for everyone to read. It's called The Dance of Death by Chris Hedges.
Mm-hmm.
And it talks about, is our civilization really getting ready to crumble? And if you don't mind, I'll just read a little excerpt from it. And it says, the elite's myopic response to the looming collapse of the natural world and the civilization to make subservient populations work harder for less, squander capital in grandiose projects such as pyramids, palaces, border walls, and fracking, and wage war. Mm-hmm. President Trump's decision to increase military spending by $54 billion and take the needed funds out of the flesh of domestic programs typifies the behavior of terminally ill civilizations. When the Roman Empire fell, it was trying to sustain an army of 500,000 soldiers that become a parasitic drain on state resources. This is what we're heading into if we allow this man to continue on with his insane policy.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think society is way more resilient than it was in Roman times. It has a lot more bounce back, and that our overabundance and our ability to recreate resources in a pinch, as from a technological level, outpaces anything they could have dreamt of. But at the same time, what it does is it makes life hell for 30% of the public at all times. And call me nuts, but I believe in what the founding fathers were saying about all people being created equal, that you are born with the same worth as everyone else, that we all share this country and we have to live up to its highest standards. We can't just let it skate and say, well, some people are American, some people are quality Americans, and other people we can just let them slide. That's the tough part of being a progressive. I appreciate the call, Amos. I'm glad we were able to give you that section. We got a lot of calls still on the line. We'll get back to them after we come back. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. Thank you for listening, too. And tune in at halsparks.tv. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you right after this. Follow me at Hal Sparks on Twitter. Mm-hmm. Let's see. Just reading back through what you guys were talking about. Thanks, TJ, by the way. Much appreciated. Yeah, great job, Amos, by the way. Thank you. Thanks, all. Yeah, I didn't. I don't have my lavalier tape with me because I wasn't able to go out and get it because we were running around. So I'm using a Masonic tie clip. This is just to drive Alex Jones crazy. I'm trying to hide, not hiding them very well, but I was like trying to hide all these little symbols. Aha! Oh, did you guys see Alex Jones's apology about PizzaGate? Scumbag! Oh my God. So they did it in bottom of hour 3 of their 4-hour show when they know that the viewership is at its all-time low, and they posted it on their Facebook page and then posted 600 things immediately afterwards so that they could so that it gave a basically so nobody would read it or see it. But their lawyers obviously made them their lawyers obviously made them do this statement because they are directly responsible for that guy who went and shot up the place. Oh, my T-shirt today is Galaxy Quest. Again, we're not. We love the resistance here at the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide, but we are part of the persistence. Never give up, never surrender. It was totally a non-apology. It was read. It was pre-taped. If you look at the show, he pre-taped the thing because they had to.
Hal?
Yeah. Yes? Yes, hello?
You were going in and out as you were talking right there.
Oh, just now? Okay. Am I okay now? Sorry.
Yeah, just now.
Okay. All right. It may have been the jack on the thing that I moved. Okay. All right. I'll hold still. I'm sorry. Okay. I'm sorry. I'll hold still. So is Alex open to inciting violence? Well, that's the thing. He literally had to. And by the way, how can I watch Alex? I don't. They played it on Media Matters. They posted his forced apology. Mm-hmm.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay. I heard a silent. I was like, "Oh my God, are you there?"
Oh yeah, I'm here. I'm just reading. I'm like, there's a article on Mulvaney that I was looking up, and yes, firing a gun in public is violence. Yeah. It looks like I'm frozen, but the TV, yeah. Because when I lock in, man, when I start reading, my girlfriend makes fun of me all the time about this. But I go to sleep, like my whole body just shuts down when I'm reading, and I'm gone. It's part of my hyperfocus. It's also why I guess it's part of my nature, and it's why I'm able to retain a lot of details. But it also means it's the exclusion of everything else when I'm reading. It's very funny. I haven't tested. I'm gonna have to hook myself up to something, and I bet you anything my heartbeat slows to next to nothing too.
20 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
You're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I've had people walk out of me before, but not when I was being so charming.
Video streaming at halsparks.com.
I don't care for you or for the putrid sludge you're troweling out.
Damn puss-faced little pimpstick.
True progressive talk.
Might be a good time for you guys to give up.
Welcome back. Let's take some calls because we still got a lot of calls on there. And who do we have, Lady B? Let's grab some.
We have Dave from Sacramento.
Perfect. Hey, Dave. Welcome. Dave's at the buffet at a cafeteria. Welcome, Dave.
Hello, Dave.
Dave, do we have you?
I guess I'll put him back.
Okay.
This is Dave. Hello?
Dave, yeah, go ahead. Are you there? No, we lost.
Okay, how you doing?
Yeah, there you go. Go ahead, Dave. You sound kind of distant, but go ahead.
Okay, that's better. Is that better?
Yeah, that is. You're talking through cotton balls. I think it sounded like you were trying to arrange for a ransom.
You there?
Yeah, go ahead.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's it. Okay, so you can hear me okay, right?
Yep.
All right. And so my point is, you can hear me okay? That's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
So,
Go ahead.
Well, my point is that I'm glad that we won this whole thing. It's time for us to move forward. And then, in 2018, when it comes down to it, we're going to go ahead and have these Republicans put their head between their legs and kiss their ass goodbye and say, okay, we're done with them. We're going to go ahead and kick them out in 2018.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's our plan. That's our plan. That's what we're going to do.
The
fact of the matter is we're tired of them. The thing about it, how so hypocritical is the fact that the hypocritical thing is that all this time that they're going after Clinton about the Benghazi and the line and the emails, and this guy's not even better. And these stupid idiots that were all against Clinton, they got this guy voted in. He's just as worse.
Yeah.
He's the biggest liar. He's the big.
They are 100% all in protecting him.
Time to move on.
Yeah, everything. I appreciate the call. Absolutely. It sounds a little weird, so I don't know why. Usually when you call in, it's great. So I think it's just bad Wi-Fi at the cafeteria. But I will say, 2018 has to be one of the biggest mobilizations of a midterm election in the history of the country. That's just period. And believe me, it will be, because there will be not only everybody who voted for Hillary coming out, I believe, but also a lot of the people who are regretful Trump voters, or people who voted for alternate candidates who regret the fact that they shifted the electorate in some areas enough to set the Electoral College in another direction. But I will say this: I think they're tired of them. It's one thing when we're tired of us, but like the Republicans seem tired of each other. I mean, this is Keystone Cops in a bug trap. This is like somebody shaking a box full of crickets or Mexican jumping bees, just making them rattle around. There is no effective movement forward in any of this nonsense. Okay, so Amos, I think, brought up Mulvaney and what he said about the climate change. Well, the president said he wanted to do this 10% rise in defense spending, right? And this is his priority for the year. He released his budget for the year and guaranteed that this is what he wants. This is his priority. That's not. It just isn't going to happen. Let's take another call because these people are not even working together.
We have Mark from Cleveland.
Excellent. Hey, Cleveland.
Hi, Mark.
What's happening, Mark? Hello, Cleveland.
Hello.
Go ahead, Mark.
Greetings from Cleveland, Hal.
Thanks.
Yeah, I had a thought this week. Remember back when Bill Clinton was president and the right started circulating this video called the Clinton Chronicles that claimed that he was like killing all his political enemies?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. Yeah, I was just thinking that right now, and this might lead into your topic, Vladimir Putin has been accused of the same thing and with far more credibility, but the right doesn't seem very concerned about
at
that.
all. Yeah, absolutely.
It's almost as if they're hypocrites who don't care. Yeah.
And
it's almost as if they're hypocrites who don't care what you do.
It's not almost as if, it is specifically that.
Like the champion.
Yeah. It is specifically that. I'm sorry, I'm talking over you. I feel like Chris Matthews because of the delay. I apologize. But you're absolutely right. And not only that, not only is there complete credible evidence, what is it, 8 dead Russians in the last 5 months who were directly related to information leaking out about the opposition and support research they'd done on Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, about Manafort's dealings with Russia, about Steve Miller and Carter Page and all these people interacting with the Russians, about Roger Stone talking to Guccifer 2.0, about Donald Trump housing in Trump Tower Russian criminals, basically a mafia organization, and a server, a computer server. All this noise about Hillary Clinton's private email server, which, by the way, we have no evidence was ever hacked. State Department was hacked. Yahoo was hacked. Gmail was hacked. Ask Petraeus and Colin Powell about how using Gmail and Yahoo for their personal email worked out. Hillary Clinton has a private email server. That's not hacked. That's completely safe. But the 30,000 emails that they were asking for her to show are, if they ever existed, are gone forever because it was a successful use of a private server. Meanwhile, Trump has a server in his basement tied to a Russian bank. And you don't think that Trump Tower, you don't think Trump Tower hasn't been bugged since they put that server in. If you were Vladimir Putin and you were engaged in all the shenanigans, stealing money from your own people, offshoring it, murdering your opposition and having green, antiseptic dye thrown on anybody who is opposing you, throwing Pussy Riot in jail, making it illegal to demonstrate against you. You don't think if you put a server tied to your illegal banking activities in the basement of Trump Tower, you wouldn't bug that place 24/7, that you would trust Donald Trump to do the right thing? Even if Trump isn't colluded with them, he's
sensible.
Yeah. It's amazing to me that even the right thinks that even if they believe Trump is innocent in all this, that he isn't being either blackmailed, controlled, or that the Russians don't have a cache of information about him. And I don't mean just prurient, pee the bed nonsense, about his sexual peccadillos that a lot of his own supporters will, ignore because they think, well, he's a success. You give a little when you take a little. That doesn't bother him. But the other ties to people who may or may not have disappeared in Russia to benefit banking that Trump is directly tied into, and to protect their investment in him, the Russians might be wiping all these people out. And Trump might be, consciously innocent, but because of his total lack of care. I mean, we're talking in terms of the deaths of people. We're talking gross negligence and manslaughter. We're not talking first-degree murder, but both are crimes, and both are morally reprehensible. And how the right is all in on this, Vince Foster, the Trumps, the Clintons were killing people, but the Trumps dealing with Russia's active murdering of Russian opposition is somehow okay. You're absolutely right. It is the most bizarre aspect of this, and it's interestingly enough. I was not a fan of John McCain and Lindsey Graham, and I certainly have differences of opinion about them on policy and all kinds of things. But I have to give them credit for standing a solid line on no. You do not give a country like Russia any grip on the United States electorate. You don't. Even if you think you're going to benefit, you do not. And full stop, that's it. And McCain and Lindsey Graham have been very sound on this. And I appreciate it. And I think a lot of Americans appreciate it. And they deserve credit for this. And this is one of the areas where you want to talk about Republicans and Democrats getting together. You want to talk about areas of agreement. That's a good starting point. Our involvement with European countries and our discussion about how to better run our democracy is a wonderful thing. But allowing a country that is actively trying to undermine Western democracy, the concept of Western democracy, to feed propaganda and false news and all kinds of conspiracy theories and all that into our electorate, while in many ways feeding news, maybe running blackmail schemes on people to maintenance the electorate, is wrong on all fronts and has to be opposed. And the weirdest thing, and I'm glad you brought it up because we have to take a break, but the weirdest thing is Trump's inability to say anything negative about Putin, ever. Ever. He will talk down the military. They lost Ryan. The CIA, the NSA, the 16 different intelligence groups, people who've died, stand in front of a wall of dead CIA agents who've given their life getting, spying for this country and saving secrets for this country. And Trump stands there in front of them and just pats himself on the back for a fake win at the inauguration. It's unbelievable that this man can talk down Democrats, talk down his own supporters, calling them uneducated. He can but the one person he will never, ever say anything bad about is Vladimir Putin. It's bizarre, unless Putin has something on him. Or he's just that much of a sycophant. Either way, those are the only two reasons, and they're both incredibly nuts. We'll be back. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide, on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. That's absolutely right, Carl. Not only is Merkel an enemy of Putin, but his goal is to undermine all the European democracies. He was instrumental in Brexit. Putin is instrumental in the rise of the right wing in a lot of these areas. He's also instrumental in the rise of the hyper left wing and they're messing around in Syria, making sure that some of the some of the bad actors in the migrant community that are committing these atrocious acts are getting through to undermine people's trust in their own government and their fear of the other. This dude's a killer. This is a strategy. And all they have is oil. And while Europe and the United States for a long time because of climate change and because of just the fact that fossil fuels are a limited resource undermines their economy because they make nothing else. And they have a huge population, like a huge landmass rather, and not enough people to warrant that much landmass. Sorry if the video's freezing. It's like my it's like the internet here at the hotel chooses between letting my radio signal go through or the YouTube signal. Apologize. To check in on it every so often. Is it frozen on there? No, okay, there we go. Yeah, so it's still rolling. Okay, good. Yeah, exactly, Carl. Russia's economy is the size of Italy's. There is no reason why this country should be this important. And that doesn't include, by the way, the Vatican. It's the economy of Italy minus the Catholic Church. Stop using the hotel motel. Sorry, Billy. This is actually supposed to be a nice one. This is the one the club puts me up in. Because a lot of times I don't pick the hotel. It's usually the one that the club has a deal with. The tough part is when...
15 seconds.
Thank you. When the tough part is when they put me in a hotel and then they announce it. They go, hey, thanks to the Ramada for putting up our artists. And you're like, now great. Now everybody knows where I'm staying.
Now back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, 773-763-9278.
Welcome back. Let's take another call. Who do we have, Lady B?
We have Carl from Nashville.
Oh, awesome. Carl.
Hey, Hal.
Carl. I always feel like now that I have to... I'm good. I feel like I have to talk to you like Rick Grimes from The Walking Dead. Carl. It's Carl. Hey, Carl. Okay. Carl. Go ahead.
You have to use the fake. You have to talk with the fake British accent.
That's right. A fake Southern accent layered on top of a British accent. Yeah, because we don't have any good, solid American actors you can hire. Don't get me started. Oh, okay. Go ahead, please.
What is going on with all the Australian and British actors playing American roles?
I'll tell you one day, but it has a lot to do with casting directors thinking that the American accent is a magic trick. Oh my God, he's got a British accent, and then all of a sudden he sounds like he's from Oklahoma. That's incredible. Like, yeah, it's just an accent like any other. You can learn it. Move on. Okay, but go ahead. Sorry, that's a diatribe.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
Listen. Oh, yeah, that's a whole nother topic. Listen, I have, before I talk about the healthcare plan and that debacle, I have to pick a bone with something you said at the end of last hour with you.
Okay.
And I think that this is something that's really keeping us from moving forward as a country, because when a person like you says something like you said, and then it comes through to an ear to a person like me, I have to call BS.
Okay.
And what you said at the end of last hour, and it's probably just something you said a million times. Our founding fathers said and wrote that all men are created equal. They absolutely did not believe that. They weren't talking about me. And these are people.
Oh, I agree. No, that was a yes.
Continue to use that and give them credit that these guys were so great, and they said that they didn't believe that. They wasn't talking about me, not at all.
I agree. They weren't talking about women either, and they weren't talking about women either. The point is
or men who didn't own property.
But ultimately, they painted themselves into a corner with that statement.
That statement to them.
They painted themselves into a corner with that belief system.
It's a hell of a statement. It's a hell of a statement, and
to live up to.
Statement, no doubt.
Yep.
But to continue to credit them. But that is amazing. Can you imagine the balls you would have to write something like that while you're owning other human beings?
Well, the interesting thing was there were
Donald Trump.
There were abolitionists and they're already at the beginning of the country. There were already abolitionists and anti-slave people who were operating in it. Not everybody who was in a part of the crafting of the thing was for that.
And my argument to that, my pushback to that has always been it took those cowards another 100 years before they finally stood up and said, maybe it's wrong for men to own other men while we're getting our freedom. But that's a whole nother story.
Sure.
This healthcare thing.
Yeah.
I listened to you. You described the Freedom Caucus, the Tea Party people to a T. You described the Ryan people to a T, and it took you about 30 minutes of dialogue to get it out. And I could have summed it up just like this.
Okay.
It was evil versus eviler, and eviler won. Evil wanted to gut it and give tax breaks to millionaires and billionaires.
Right.
Eviler wanted to get rid of it altogether. And eviler won that argument.
They want to call the herd.
These people, they can't govern. Exactly. Well, here's the thing. And people and I know you have Republicans that listen to your show, they have to understand that Republicans, the people that you elect, they're not getting money from millionaires and billionaires to govern our country. They get all that money to gunk up the system and not govern. And what happens is when they get the power and they're in power, they get the House, the Senate, and the presidency, and now they have to govern. They don't know how to govern because guess what? Surprise, surprise. They're not put there to govern.
Right.
That's why they always have problems when they have total control of the government because they're there to be the opposition party. And until you youthful idiots, and I'm talking to you, Kentucky, West Virginia, North Carolina, Tennessee, until you youthful idiots realize that, hey, these people use you every time. And they're going to tell you that this thing is horrible, it's killing our country, and on day one, they don't even have a plan ready to go. That's because they never think in their tiny little reptile minds that they're going to get in power to govern. They don't really think that you're going to give them the power to govern. That's why they just flail around and do all these crazy things like vote to repeal Obamacare about 60 times, and now they get the opportunity to do it. Whoa, wait a minute. You can't do this because this will hurt people. And then you got another group that says, wait a minute, we have to do this because it don't hurt enough people.
Right.
Hence the name evil versus eviler.
Right. Well, I completely agree with those two, that assessment. However, the only thing I would say is that using the word evil just takes some of the fun out of watching them flail about, because I don't even give them credit for being evil well. These guys don't even do selfish right. So evil, one would think.
I remember when you said that.
Yeah. Yeah. They don't even.
I mean, you're right. They don't even do selfish right. I mean, think about this, Hal. They've been having 7 years to do this and get this thing right. You would have think that they would. If I'm a Republican voter, I would think that on the first day they would have something ready to go. And here it is, 60-something days later, and they have.
Dude,
you have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you, Carl. I appreciate the call always. And I will say this: I have a health care plan. Okay, a couple of months ago, when all this stuff started coming up and everybody was going, the complexity of the blah, 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 I started drafting up what would be my bullet points of this, and I kind of want to do this as like a HSRPM special at some point, where I break down how I would do it, and I don't want to be too much like, we got a great plan, it's coming, it's wonderful, it comes everywhere, but it's just some modifications to the Affordable Care Act that, Jackie Schechtner and I had talked about over the years, that would fortify it and make it more fluid and offer a couple more options. I thought that through. Like me, private citizen.
You just went in and out.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Am I back? All right. Is it okay now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, you're back.
Excellent. So I was saying, I've drafted a healthcare bill that I would like, based on what I think are the priorities or whatever. And that's just me as a private citizen going, this is what I think should be useful, just so I can talk about it with some clarity when we're on the show. So I started going through and making notes of what I would do. This is just me a couple months ago. Listening to what the Republicans are doing, I think my bill could get passed. I think my modifications to the Affordable Care Act would be very sound. And a lot of people in a normal universe where actually people care about the outcome would feel great about it. But I bothered to do that. And the Republicans have had 7 years. And they're not even bothering. 7 years. And every time they vote for this, every time they vote for repeal, every time they've had an opportunity, like, as soon as we get this out of there, we're going to show you what we've got. It's a much better thing. Never. Every single time, never had a plan. Still don't have a plan. When they finally came up with something, they were redrafting it and basically throwing it into a chipper shredder to appeal to the more, disgusting members of their electorate. People who really do not have any concern for people receiving health care, people who may be ill or fighting off bankruptcy because of an unforeseen illness. People who like the idea of going, we need more coal jobs, but if the coal miners die of diseases in there's too much regulation that shut down the coal mines, and these guys shouldn't have health care because unions are bad. Like, these guys don't care about the outcome for the human beings involved in this. They care about the economic number scheme. And once you've outlived your usefulness as a worker, they'll fill you in with somebody else. Their job plan is, it's like lemmings going off a cliff. Let workers die and be replaced by workers. None of them matter. Nobody gets a toehold. Anybody who, falls behind or gets sick or tries to send their kid to college, how dare they? The debt that they should have to accrue to send their child to college, or that their kid should have to accrue to go to college, should be devastating to the point of scaring them off. And then there's all this talk about, well, maybe some people just aren't meant to go to college. Maybe they should just have vocational training. There's no shame in vocational training, and there isn't. But that's not a conversation you should have and even have to say. You shouldn't even have to say, I have a choice between educating myself about esoterics or growing into an academic field, or becoming a scientist versus working on engines or computers, or going into IT. These specific choices, if you're saying there's nothing wrong with this, there shouldn't be anything wrong with either one of them, that there should be available opportunities for everybody in that area. But what they want is the debt marker. If you want a better house, if you want to educate your kids, if you want was considered like normal middle class in the 70s, if you want that, it should be so out of reach to keep you on the edge, so that if you get sick, if somebody in your family, if your child becomes addicted to opioids or heroin or something like that, it's just tough. Let it drag the rest of the family down. Let you spend all your money dealing with this problem because it's your fault and it helps everybody else get ahead. It's gross. We got to take a break. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT, Chicago's Progressive Talk. And more about the Founding Fathers after this. Love you, Carl. Yeah, understand that one of the reasons why they don't, why this bill failed, and why they couldn't get it through, is because, and the funny thing about Carl saying evil and eviler, it was when it's paired against, I guess in the analogy, the eviler is the Freedom Caucus because they wanted fewer benefits, but it was Paul Ryan who wanted to cap Medicaid growth, and Medicare, along with eliminating all these other protections. And in doing so, that's actually worse long term, because what they're trying to do is the Medicaid and Medicare expansion towards Medicare for all, towards a single payer federal system. So, by the way, augmented by state systems of single payer, which I think is a perfect storm, where you can get supplementary insurance from private or from state-run systems. By trying to stop the Medicaid and Medicare expansion, they're trying to eliminate the possibility of the growth towards universal health care. Because that cycle of, it's funny that I should probably wait until you come back or whatever, but to talk about this. But there's, to put it in terms that the hard right could understand, is that the insurance companies currently are the healthcare equivalent of the Fed, in that the Fed creates money that the U.S. government has to borrow, creating an automatic profit for itself, that we borrow our money into existence instead of just making it, and that percentage that we pay on that lines the pockets of the Fed banks and the people who own them. Well, the same thing is true of insurance. If these guys are just middlemen, oftentimes their bottom line is shored up by the government in case they hit near failure and they have to be bailed out. So ultimately, it's the taxpayer that's on the hook for it anyways. So they can kind of milk as much profit from it as possible. And if they almost go under, can't have a situation where the country has no insurance, all these people will lose their insurance. So the government has to roll in and clean it up. Oh, Lord. Huntington Beach. Yeah. Well,
25 seconds.
Thank you. I'm going to see if I can get Jackie to come on the show next week.
Now back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, 773-763-9278.
Okay, before we take our next caller, I want to talk a little bit about the Russian story a little bit, which was, has grown in intrigue. So Devon Nunes, a lot of people saw this where he comes out. For those of you who don't know, Devon Nunes, he represents California's 16th congressional district. It is right in the middle of the San Joaquin Valley. I don't want to get too Rachel Maddow on this, where I give you the whole backstory leading up. Tell you a little story about this certain type of ant that grows in the San Joaquin Valley. But Nunes represents a couple of specific areas. One is part of Fresno, where most of the voters come from, and another area is Los Banos, which is where one of the biggest water treatment plants is for California, for Southern California, taking that water from Central California and moving it down, and then maybe some of it up to San Francisco as well. He's also near Chowchilla and Merced, and a couple of the areas where you get the big cattle slaughter facilities. There's if you're driving from California, like through California from LA to San Francisco, there's a period where you start like, oh my God, something's horrible, and then you roll up your windows because you're just like cow pastures. The smell of manure and slaughterhouse mixes together. That's Devon Nunes' district. Okay, so Nunes, now famously. Goes before he talks to Congressman Schiff, his ranking member on the intelligence on the investigation committee. Before he goes to speak to him, he finds out some new information about the wiretaps and the words that were caught, the people that were caught up in this, what was said, some of the transcripts. He gets this information instead of going to his ranking member and talking to the committee. He goes straight to the White House. and then speaks to Trump, shows him the intel, and then has a press conference where he answers a bunch of questions about this. Now, first of all, I saw this on Hannity too. This defense that this is illegal. The Democrats, the Obama administration in investigating what was going on in Trump Tower, through the natural channels, whether they had a fight. This is illegal. So when Americans get scooped up in the surveillance of a foreign entity, unless the warrant covers those Americans too.
Can you repeat the last 10 seconds?
Oh, yes.
Just went out.
Oh, man. So if the president has a FISA warrant and the FBI and the CIA are intercepting foreign communications, dealing with illegal acts by foreign governments, if Americans are swept up in that, then those names have to remain hidden, and you have to stop listening when you know it's them, unless the warrant itself, because of information obtained either accidentally or on purpose, points to a crime, which you have a responsibility in that case. Like, I overheard a crime being mentioned, and it relates to other information we have. We know it's legit. We would like to expand the warrant to cover this person and that person. We also have situations where Americans are trading cash back and forth. As soon as you get into the monetary situation where money is changing hands across state lines, across the lines of other countries, and ending up in the pockets of individuals in the United States, then where that money ends up becomes suspect. The Treasury, if you'll notice, has entered into this argument earlier, because it may be, in effect, a Treasury warrant that was part of this collection. But this big thing that all of a sudden, Sean Hannity and all these people are so concerned that people are illegally listening. The president is listening to people who are just conducting business. They're just talking to their Russian cohorts. It isn't right. It's illegal that their names are getting, which is not the fact. Their names were unpacked, meaning that people said, we keep seeing this guy calling people who we know are criminals. He's done it more than once. We need to go to the judge because we keep seeing this guy calling the same person. This is hinky. This is exactly how warrants expand in every other criminal circumstance. And again, there were Russian mobsters in Trump Tower. There was a Russian server tied to a bank there in Trump Tower. So Nunes comes down. And understand, let me give you an analogy of what this would be like. It would be like if during Whitewater, when all this nothing was going on, but they found out about Monica Lewinsky, if a Democratic congressperson came down to the White House with the blue dress in a bag, showed it to the president and said, you might want to rephrase your statement, and then proceeded to give a press conference wearing the dress. Imagine if Nunes came out in a stained blue dress and started going, I've spoken to the president. I will later talk to everyone else, but I thought there was information he needed to know about how fabulous this looks on me. So, completely sketchy. Everybody says it's wholly inappropriate. They're caught off guard by it. He has to apologize to the committee, not just the Democrats, also the Republicans. He didn't mention it to anybody else on that thing. He left them high and dry. This guy is either playing CYA or something, but just when you thought it couldn't get any more sketchy, where the Russian equivalents of the people that are involved in this are getting bags pulled over their heads in meetings, dragged out and disappeared, where Russian opposition figures are having their bank accounts and their passports and their papers and their assets frozen, ground up, thrown into a chipper shredder and burned, and then they end up shot on the street by people linked to Vladimir Putin. In the United States, we have a story like this. Leaving his aides behind, the chairman on the House Intelligence Committee, Devon Nunes, disappeared the night before he met President Donald Trump and tipped him off that the intelligence community incidentally collected information on Trump transition members. According to the Daily Beast, Representative Devon Nunes was traveling in an Uber with an aide Tuesday night when he received a call on his cell phone and then left the car, giving no indication where he was going. The abrupt departure by Nunes was verified by 3 committee officials and a former national security official. Wednesday, Nunes called a surprise press conference where he told reporters the intelligence community incidentally collected information about U.S. citizens involved in the Trump transition before going to the White House to inform the president about what he had seen. Later in the day, Nunes was flayed by House Intelligence Committee members for not sharing the information with them, with Democrats calling for him to recuse himself for acting like a surrogate for the White House. The senior Democrat on the committee, Representative Adam Schiff, Democrat of California, has continued to criticize Nunes, saying that a Republican has refused to share what he saw and who showed it to him. Speaking with the press on Friday, Schiff made a reference to Nunes' dead-of-night incursion before adding that he and other committee members are still in the dark. It's not just that he hasn't shared them with the Democrats in the committee, he hasn't shared them with the Republicans on the committee, Schiff explained. This guy ditched his staffer, snuck off, got information on Trump surveillance from a source he won't name, with information he won't give to anybody but Donald Trump. And then we're supposed to take seriously his running of an investigative committee. No, I don't buy it. It's not. This is because we are a more together country, quite frankly, than Russia. This is on par with freezing the assets of somebody and snuffing the opposition. Sneaking out in the middle of the night, ditching your own staff to go receive information from someone that you provide to the president before you provide to the committee. And then that information, by the way, is simply that Trump campaign people were incidentally collected. This is what he said. We told them that they were incidentally collected. Okay, well, guess what? We already knew that. That's been the crux of this story for months. Of course that's how they were incidentally. That's essentially how it was known that Flynn mentioned the sanctions to the Russian ambassador. Because he was incidentally collected. Why was he incidentally collected? Because we are monitoring the Russian ambassador because we don't trust that guy. And anybody who contacts him too much starts immediately looking a little hinky. And Flynn had been talking to him. It's almost like you hit 15 phone calls to this guy and suddenly you get picked up in the warrant. Anybody who talks to, you could get a warrant based on that. Anybody who talks to this dude more than 20 times is up to something because this guy is a crook. This guy is dealing in some shady stuff. So anybody calls this guy, we know a guy's a drug dealer. We know he's running arms. We know that he's been responsible for, setting up the hit of somebody else. And I'm not talking about the Russian ambassador. This is I'm making an allegory here. I'm giving an example. If let's say the FBI knows that they've got a drug dealer they've got a tap on, and they know that some people who call this guy are not criminal. But anybody who calls him more than 20 times is part of the organization. It is not inconceivable that the FBI and the CIA, in concern for shenanigans of the Russians were manipulating our election and undermining the strength of our democracy, and intentionally doing this, by the way, for years, that like we have an ongoing authorized use of force agreement in terms of some of the countries that we're kind of perpetually at war with. It's completely reasonable that we have these in terms of some countries like China and Russia that are either stealing our diplomatic secrets and messing with our elections, or stealing our technological secrets, copying them, handing them out to their companies, and then regurgitating cheaper models of them to undermine our companies here. We have standing warrants in terms of that in the country as well. So this incidental collection isn't like, oh, they just happened to call him and now we're being rude. Once you hit that 20 marker, and that may have been how Flynn got caught. He called the dude too many times because he was calling him before he was even part of the Trump campaign. Because when he was acting as a surrogate for a foreign government, he was talking to these guys all the time. We'll be back. But this is RICO stuff. And so when Sean Hannity is whinging that all of a sudden, incidental collection is, poor Americans getting their rights taken away and our freedoms and our liberties, which they don't give a crap about when they're letting people infiltrate people, who want to, who protest against Bush during the Iraq War. All of a sudden, now that Trump's illegal activities with the Russians and money laundering and murder are all getting scooped up in these collections, suddenly, the president's an innocent victim of. Grow up, have the standard and own the standard, or don't pretend that you're not just running interference for him. Sean, you big baby. We'll be back. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. That's right, Michael.
We still have 3 callers hanging on. I don't know if you'll be able to get a chance to.
I think I'll be able to get one in this one because we got very little time. So I'll try to get one when we come back. Whoever's been holding the longest.
Okay, we have Dave from San Francisco.
Okay, great.
Now back to the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide, 773-763-9278.
The post game on the American Healthcare Act, and believe me, folks, it is an act. It is simply an act. Trump's, we played a little bit of his post game. We were a couple points there. We shaved a couple points here and there. We wish we could have done it. I'm very disappointed, but we'll get our game together. His tweet following it, Obamacare will explode, and we will all get together and piece together a great healthcare plan for the people. Because he puts that in all caps. Do not worry. Do not worry. That's how he ends it. My, of course, response was, we stopped worrying when you blew it on Thursday. This absurdity that he knows what's going on, that somehow he could skip doing his homework, phone this in. This is the second Republican president that thinks you can phone in governing. That's great, Kip. One of the people in our chat room is conservative AHCA, Caucus, CAHCA. All right. It is this. It is stunning to me how they think that, the president was like, yeah, we're just going to, we kind of do this. Well, I'll be out here cutting brush, and Cheney will be crafting all this stuff. He's got giant 2 human-sized safes in his office so he can conduct business on paper. So we don't have to worry about emails getting out, people finding out about us. And then Trump, we find out, is playing from the same playbook. He's got the plan for Ukraine delivered by hand. This is old school. I mean, we are this close to having spies have to, carry little silver cameras going, like Fletch. Let me take one more call because we don't have a lot of time left. I want to grab at least one more call. Some of you have been hanging on for a while, so we'll get whoever's been hanging on the longest, and then we do have a happy ending. Who do we have there, Lady B?
We have Dave from San Francisco.
Oh, right on. Hey, Dave.
Oh, all right, Hal. A couple of things regarding health care. 100 years ago, in fact, probably even 120, 30 years ago, Charles Dickens, who wrote Christmas Carol and whatnot, was writing about pollution and how it was devastating whole sections of town. And he called for forcing factory owners to live within a block and a half of their factory.
Right.
And so that would, when you start looking at all of the current cases of cancer and expensive medical problems that are hitting the healthcare system today, it's directly related to pollution.
Yep. Cancer clusters. Yep.
Absolutely. And these guys, they're getting a tax break for not cleaning it up. They're getting a tax break for they basically stole the medical plans with these corporate takeovers. That's how Mitt Romney made his billions, is stealing medical plans and stealing retirement funds. And so now all of these retirees are dead broke because of fat cats like Mitt Romney robbing their HMO. And what's it, Governor Scott of Florida, and I think even who's big ears, Perot.
Yeah.
Didn't he steal from the Social Security Fund?
Absolutely.
These guys, and then, of course,
it just means I'm smart. It just means I'm smart.
Yeah,
I'm just smart. I'm taking advantage of the system. It just means I'm smart.
That's it. Do you remember the trifecta joke? Right after 9/11, Bush was going around, and when you're a public speaker, you should start off with a joke. Right?
Oh.
So Bush's joke right after 9/11 was, "I won the trifecta." Now you study that one. I think there's 22 tape recordings of that, and they are sick for how he laughs about how he's going to loot Social Security.
Yeah.
So these guys are trying to kill us. Don't underestimate their venality.
I agree, and I also I've said for a long time that one of the reasons why I think they knew the economy was a house of cards, and they also knew that after Bush had screwed up so badly in the Iraq wars that there was going to be a Democrat in office, and the only way to keep them from making huge steps in terms of fortifying Social Security and doing things like the Affordable Care Act, where they managed healthcare and those kind of things, the only way to really keep universal healthcare from happening in the case of this was to upend the economy and give them something else to have to deal with for the next 4 years. And then they didn't think they'd actually be able to do it, so they thought it'd be a one-term president. They thought they could, basically Carterize, to borrow a phrase, the Obama or Clinton, whoever was in there. And I think there's a very strong chance that Trump will be the George H.W. Bush one-term president. That the Republicans are always trying to make out of a Democrat. And you're absolutely right. All the cancer, it's the amazing thing, and that's where everybody's going, well, the healthcare bill is going to hurt people who are Trump voters the most. Well, not everybody in those states voted for Trump. A lot of those factory workers and stuff are Democrats. They may feel a bit lonely at times, but that's the job that they have, and they work for in Louisiana, these big chemical plants in North Carolina, South Carolina, all these areas where the chemical plants themselves are related to these huge cancer clusters where people get brain tumors and all this other stuff that would make Erin Brockovich just busy for the rest of her life. And they shrug it off like it's the cost of doing business. And I've always said, like, if I had to run a coffee house and I said, I can employ 20 people in this neighborhood, but I'm going to have to shoot one customer a year to do it, you'd lock me up. But that's how they deal with coal. That's how they deal with any of these other things. And I appreciate the call. And I've only got a couple minutes left, so I do want to end on a good note. And I don't just mean the fact that the Republicans ate it this week on such a massive scale. It was hilarious. I literally was laughing watching them defend this because, A, the joy of the Affordable Care Act being at least maintained for the time being and have an opportunity to fix it and build on it. But this is actually a piece of good news. I'm going to leave you guys with this, and then we'll see you next week. And thank you to everybody in the Super Chat for giving us everybody. You guys have been awesome. You're always a great part of that. I can't tell you how much I'm grateful that you guys join us every week. Lady B, by the way, you're wonderful. I can't thank you enough for always being here with us and managing my crazy tech issues and the phone lines and everything. Just we love Lady B, and just for the record, you're wonderful. And then here's you're absolutely. I wish I was there more often to do the show from there just so I could give you a hug and say hello. So here it is. Global goals on climate change may be attainable after all due to the rapid collapse of coal. This is from Daily Kos. Good news is a rare thing in climate change stories. Coming off the hottest year ever, following the hottest year ever, and the sea ice levels falling to record lows in the North Pole, incredibly balmy, even in the darkness of winter. It's clear that we've passed a whole teeter factory worth of tipping points, but there's one bit of good news that indicates that things may actually beat the current most dire predictions. The amount of new coal power being built around the world fell by nearly 2/3 last year, prompting campaigners to claim the polluting fossil fuel was in free fall. We're going to bring those coal jobs back? No, we're not. The rapid rise of low-cost natural gas has already swept every planned coal plant in the dustbin in the United States. There are exactly 0 new coal plants planned for the future in the North American market, and conversion or closure of many existing plants is underway. Europe has also dropped sizable amounts of coal production in the last year, and Scotland went coal-free. But it's China and India, both formerly regarded as rising markets for coal, that are throwing off previous estimates by making big reductions in the planned use of coal. That's good news. Maybe in us completely being jerks about it and being unpopular in the process is making other countries go, you know what, whatever America stops doing, we should start doing, because if Trump thinks it's good, it's going to destroy the earth. We love you guys. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I'm Hal Sparks. Thanks for listening. Next week, Johnny Million will be with us. Follow me on Twitter at HSRPM. We also have a Facebook page. It's called facebook.com/RadioFreeHal. And, of course, halsparks.tv. Like and subscribe to the YouTube page. You guys are awesome. Thanks for being there with us. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Buy the new KXM record. Thank you, Lady B. Bye, Lady B. You're great. Talk to you later. Disconnecting. Couldn't tell if you could hear me. You're wonderful. Bye, Lady B. See you later. Bye. All right. Now I can take these things out and not have to worry about my lavalier anymore and talk to you guys. What was that? Some weirdness in the hotel behind me. All right. There we go. Now I can just talk to you guys, chat room. How you doing? Yes, she does. Thank you, Astro Music Man. We are in, we're in Baltimore right now. I'm doing stand-up at Magooby's. One of those, it's a great club, but it's one of those unfortunately named silly ones. It's like being at Chuckle Huts or, Kit Shickers, that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's post-game time. But I think the most interesting thing this week, and I don't know if you guys got to see it, and it's on Media Matters, is this, I'll see if I can You know what? It's about time I start being able to put up some of these clips so that you can, let's see, capture devices. We'll do the Logitech camera, and we'll add onto that that thing. We will add another one. We'll add a, let's see, what do you get? Screen capture. Will that do it? Maybe. Possibly. Let's see. Window. Let's see. And I'll capture the system audio for it. There we go. Okay, and I've got to open up. I'll do this in Safari so it doesn't double over and freak out. What am I doing? Let's see. Media Matters. There you go. Matters.org. There you go. Yeah, here it is. Alex Jones apologizes for and I'm sorry if you guys, this means listening to Alex Jones a little bit, but it's a little frightening notion. Select window monitor, try this, okay, selection, select screen region, and we'll do this, bring this guy up, 1 second, because I have to overlap all these things. Take this down to about this big, this should do it. Click OK, return, OK. We'll take this and open it up, and this is me getting to do this kind of stuff. See if this actually plays through. Click OK. Run this over here. There it is. Yeah, so he, I don't know if you guys have been following this PizzaGate nonsense, besides the guy who shot the place up. But it follows in line with that whole concept of this idea that the sort of Vince Foster illusion. Hold on 1 second. We'll move this over in a second. It's right over my face. I'm going to move it around. But this is. Let's see if this audio comes through. This is just me kind of doing a test, see if you guys can hear this. But this is, yeah. So he cut to this apology.
Alex Jones here with an important note to our viewing, listening, and reading audiences.
He's reading it from a teleprompter.
Read to you from a statement that's also posted to Infowars.com that I wrote yesterday. Last fall, before the presidential election, a large number of media outlets began reporting on allegations arising from emails released by WikiLeaks that appeared to come from John Podesta, who served President Clinton and Obama and was the chairman of Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. Dozens of those stories and articles raised or discussed theories that some of Podesta's emails contained code words for human trafficking and or pedophilia. Stories also included allegations connecting members of the Democratic Party with a number of restaurants allegedly involved with a child sex ring. These stories were cited and discussed in social media and went viral on the internet. One of the persons mentioned in many of the stories
his lawyer.
in the media was a Washington, D.C. restaurant owner named James Alefantis and his pizza restaurant, Comet Ping Pong. It is fair to say that Mr. Alefantis is a prominent individual who has been mentioned as a power player in Washington. Mr. Alefantis and his restaurant were mentioned in many stories published.
By the way, as he reads this is their legal program. These are great icons that come up underneath his face. Listen to how many excuses he makes for why they went with this story. Other news sources were doing it. We got caught up in it. It wasn't my fault that I got so, I ran down the, I made all these allegations about this dude, and somebody walked into his pizza shop with a gun. But it's not my fault.
Mr. Alefantis was quoted in many subsequent stories, and he denied any involvement in such reported child sex rings. These denials were reported in the national media and many other outlets and news websites. The volume of stories was substantial.
That's not an excuse. By the way, the volume of stories was not because it was all over the New York Times or the Washington Post or on mainstream media outlets. It wasn't because it was a vetted story that was coming out. Nobody was writing a book about it because they were doing the deep research. There were lots of stories because there were lots of people like Alex Jones doing YouTube videos about it. That's not the same thing as saying lots of outlets were doing it. Those lots of outlets were the Breitbarts of the world.
National headlines
Tops.
came to be known across the country as PizzaGate. We at InfoWars became part of that national discussion.
No, you didn't. You led part of that national discussion.
We broadcast commentary about the allegations and the theory that the emails contained code words. We raised questions about information in Mr. Podesta's emails and in the Comic Ping Pong restaurant.
No, you didn't. You made assertions about it.
I believed at the time that further investigation was necessary. In December of 2016, we disassociated ourselves from the PizzaGate claims and theories, a position we reiterated last month after being contacted by Mr. Alifanis.
Yeah, by Mr. Alifanis' lawyers.
In late February of 2017, we received a letter from Mr. Alifanis asking that we retract certain statements that he says were made in 7 of our broadcasts.
Yeah, they were made in 7 of those broadcasts. They were actually made in more, but specifically they were made. He doesn't say. He says, "You know what you said in your video. You have your videos. If they're in there, they're in there." He doesn't say if he said. It's not like you didn't watch your own shit, and now you can't see it. Like that's it's absurd. Anyway, so okay, here we go.
Between the last week of November and the first week of December in 2016. We have attempted through our lawyers to contact Mr. Alifanis to discuss with him what sort of statement he would like to see made.
Yeah, that's because he's filing legal paperwork after that dude shot the place up against you guys, and he's going to be successful.
About what had become known as PizzaGate, I made comments about Mr. Alifanis that in hindsight I regret and for which I apologize to him.
For legal reasons.
We were participating in a discussion that was being written about by scores of media outlets in one of the most hotly contested and disputed political environments our country has ever seen.
Oh, so the reason Alex Jones called this guy a pedophile and accused him of killing children in the basement of his pizza parlor and allowed people on his show to float that idea without much pushback at all, and why one of his own reporters was one of the biggest people pushing it. The reason is, it wasn't because of him and his organization. It was because we were in a very contested election. It was because people were. It was very upsetting. It was a very upsetting time. We were all very caught up.
We relied on third-party accounts of alleged activities and conduct at the.
Yeah, that he just described how InfoWars works.
Restaurant. We also relied on accounts of reporters who were no longer with us.
For legal reasons.
It was an ever-evolving story, which had a huge amount of commentary about it across many, many media outlets.
Yeah,
that
that doesn't excuse you from offering an opinion that this guy is dangerous or needs to be investigated, or that there's something to it, or where there's smoke, there's fire, or driving it up to like this is that Hillary Clinton knows this guy and John Podesta because they had a fundraiser there, that they're involved in blood sacrifices, and this is just proof. Yeah.
4. What became a heightened focus on Mr. Alifanis and Comet Ping Pong by many media outlets was not appropriate. To my knowledge today, neither Mr. Alifanis nor his restaurant, Comet Ping Pong, were involved in any human trafficking, as was part of the theories about PizzaGate that were being written about in the media outlets and which we commented upon.
Mm-hmm.
I want our viewers and listeners to know that we regret any negative impact our commentaries may have had on Mr. Alifanis, Comet Ping Pong, or its employees.
But we're glad we were able to help the gun industry sell some ammo.
We apologize to the extent our commentaries could be considered as negative statements about Mr. Alifanis or Comet Ping Pong, and we hope that anyone else involved in commenting on PizzaGate will do the same thing. Here's what we've done to clarify to the public. Months ago, we took down the majority of broadcasts and videos, including ones that only passingly mentioned PizzaGate.
Yeah, that's called oopsing. When you're online and you put something out that you know is legally actionable, goes well beyond the personal criticism, which is exactly what I'm doing today of Alex Jones, because I think he's a scumbag, personally. That's my opinion. I stand by it. But when you say things that are actionable and they have led to people going there and taking what they believe is the law into their own hands, because you have shored up this idea that not only Hillary Clinton isn't just a politician you disagree with, that she bathes in blood. And when you push that narrative and then say that anybody with her is making, hand signs in their videos that they have, that they kill people, and this is, these are little signals about how they do blood sacrifices and all that stuff, then you get busted, and one of these people walks in there with a gun, thinking because of what you're saying, not what all the media outlets are saying, but specifically what Alex Jones was saying about the topic and a bunch of the ancillary YouTube videos that are tied to it, using what Alex says as reinforcement, because this is how one of these fake stories gets rolling. This guy walks into that place with a gun and fires it into the ceiling, demanding to see the freezers where they keep the bodies and where the secret stairway down to the sex room and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, all right.
This happened months before we were even contacted by Mr. Alefantis.
Yeah, because people were just starting to put it together that, we said stuff that is, our lawyers talk to us, and if anything goes south, we're responsible.
Mr. Alefantis objected to portions of 7 particular radio/TV broadcasts. We have taken down those 7 broadcasts, and we have attempted to take down any broadcasts that mention Mr. Alefantis or Comet Ping Pong.
Mm-hmm.
We have attempted to do so not just on our website, but also on social media sites such as our YouTube channel. If Mr. Alefantis has any other objections, we invite him to let us know. 2 reporters who used to be associated with us are no longer with us. In a recent broadcast, I invited Mr. Alefantis on our program to state what he wanted to, and I again do so here. He has given interviews to many media outlets.
Yeah, all of them are legitimate media outlets that didn't play a part in getting a guy to come to his place of business and fire a gun because he thought that they were killing children in the basement and making pizza out of them and feeding them to demons that reside in Hillary Clinton's spinal column. This is like this bizarre devil worship concept of Scientology that Alex Jones bumps around in his head.
And he is welcome to come on our show. In issuing this statement, we are not admitting that Mr. Alefantis or his restaurants have any legal claim.
That's the only reason you're making this. All the rest of it is a preamble to that sentence.
Do not believe they do. But we are issuing this statement because we believe it's the right thing to do.
If you don't want to get sued for playing a part in getting a guy to go to someplace and shoot the place up.
It will be no surprise to you that we will fight for children across America. But the PizzaGate narrative, least as concerning Mr. Alefantis and Comet Ping Pong, we have subsequently determined was based upon what we now believe was an incorrect narrative. Despite the fact that we were far from the genesis of this story.
Yeah, we didn't start it. This is why Alex Jones and Donald Trump get along so well. I didn't start this. He started it. I just carried it.
It is never easy to admit when your commentaries are based on inaccurate information, but we feel like we owe it to you, the listeners, viewers, and supporters to make that statement.
No, we owe it to Comet Ping Pong and Alefantis because they're going to sue the pants off of us, and we have to get ahead of this so that we can reference this video in court.
An apology to you and Mr. Alefantis when we do. We encourage you to hold us accountable because we improve when you do.
And then they cut back to the regular broadcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got distracted off by MSM on this stuff in D.C. when it was all going on in New York. that's why day one I saw it, and I saw the media, and I said, get off that. And I did that because we're not psychopaths. We actually look at what's reality and then focus on that. We don't go like MSM with all their disinfo and just cold-bloodedly spew lies. This person's a racist. This person's this person's that. Just because it gets us ahead in what we're doing, we're all about integrity. And that's why we make...
Yeah, by the way, but Hillary Clinton drinks blood. So, yeah.
By covering MSM, focusing on it in the huge debate, we will absolutely own up to it and make right.
So the reason he got caught up in PizzaGate was because the mainstream media was running with it. That was... So the mainstream media was covering it because it swelled to it came up with a groundswell because of Alex Jones and his ilk. The conspiracy theory sources, it raised so much that a dude went there and shot up the place.
As we just did. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're about to start hour number 4 from right here in the studio, where Dr. Nick Baggage continues to broadcast with David Knight. Key intel straight ahead. Spread those links. They're trying to shut us down.
Yeah. The other thing, by the way, they did this at the end of our, 3, beginning of hour 4. And hold on one second. We'll move this back over. He ran this pre-taped apology at the end of hour 3, beginning of hour 4, at the lowest arc of their story. And he's the backsword of Vermont. And he's been doing, by the way, he's been doing these like live streams, I think, quite frankly, to take advantage of the new super chat thing on YouTube. I really believe this, and I appreciate you guys doing it. Certainly, we're not even on par with the kind of money they raise over there. But he gets on these super chats and says it's almost like it's like an evil version of an NPR fundraiser. Like, we need your subscriptions, otherwise we're going to get kicked off the air. And so he goes on the air and has these, has people like for 14 hours going, this might be the last time we're on the air. And they've done this like 9 days. There's a constant live stream going on now. They do these long radio shows anyway, so he's just kind of using it as an excuse, just kind of dragging it out. But, like, yeah. See, please, where Hillary Clinton was running horse, right? You notice how when Jeff Gannon was coming and going in late night hours from the White House, the right-wing media just couldn't, was like, you guys reported it, leave him alone. This is so not true. Okay? I don't know what you guys are on about. He's just a person. He's just a reporter who's trying to do stuff. Yeah, and I have no problem with him being a former gay male prostitute. If that's what you got to do to live, I'm sad for you if that's not what you want to do, and if it is what you want to do, then knock yourself out. But if that's what you're doing, and you're going to the White House late at night, it's a little hinky, and people might want to give it a glance, especially when the White House that they were going into was so homophobic. That's the more curious part of it. Yeah, so Jeff Gannon's going in there, all hours, really late at night, kind of pulling a Devon Nunes. The right wing couldn't. It was like, yeah, Fred Garvin, male prostitute. Try not to touch my elaborate series of trusses. I love Fred Garvin, male prostitute, by the way. It's one of the greatest SNL sketches of all time. Anyways, so, yeah, Guckert Gannon, that's right. He had 2 names. That guy came and went, and you didn't really hear anything from that. Is my hair blue, or is it? I think it's just your display. My hair is not currently blue. I think it might be the light from outside has a bluish hue. If you look at my arm, in the light, there's kind of a bluish hue to the, yeah, there you go, to the outside, to the sky, as it were. That might be why. Giving me a little bit of blue bounce, I guess. It was a classic, Carl. It is true. Fred Garvin, male prostitute. Holy shit, Dan Aykroyd is a funny man. Anyways, the point was, you look at how they reacted to the Gucker-Gannon storyline. Couldn't be bothered with it. But you look at this bizarre fixation on Hillary Clinton must be involved in human trafficking and all this kind of stuff. Zero substantiation, to the point where a dude goes there and literally, I mean, again, shoots the place. And yet they're just fine with it. That's nuts to me. And not to mention Sandy Hook. Like, this is, understand that in the entire context of what Alex Jones is saying there, this is the context of a person who believed that Sandy Hook was faked as a gun snatching scheme. That no children were killed, that this was a mock act, that the parents there were fake, they were actors, crisis actors, and that no one, the children that were there were, I don't know, like it's footage from Eastern Europe of similar school with similar architecture, and they just faked the whole thing and run the film into it, and the kid who shot up the place and his mom and all that stuff is a fake story, and this is just so that they could complete that whole gun grab that Obama was going for from day one, which never happened, by the way. You could almost one of my favorite stories, and it almost made the happy ending, but I try to make the happy endings as much about a net positive, that it's not, or I guess a gross positive, technically speaking, is that I don't want it to be at someone's to the detriment of anybody when you have the ending story. But one of the big ones is that Trump's office has done damage to the gun lobby. Has wrecked. No, it wouldn't, Mark. I don't think it would. That's the sad part. I think they're committed to this. And let's see. Seriously, think about the mentality of some Americans to listen to someone like Jones and make a decision to walk in a pizza joint and shoot a gun. Yeah, completely agree, Lisa Ann, but understand, Jonestown happened. There's just 20% of the American public has some form of mental illness. Only 2% of that 20% are in any kind of way genuinely dangerous, but half of those people are ambulatory. That's 50,000 people, give or take. So yeah, but apparently Trump's victory has relaxed everybody because they don't think he's going to steal their guns. So the gun industry is having to lay off workers. They're losing money because they don't have they can't drive you to be afraid so easily. So they're literally the gun manufacturers, specifically handgun manufacturers, are losing money and having to lay off people. Ambulatory means you can move around. It's where ambulance gets from, moving someone who can't move themselves, ambulatory. But the idea of ambulatory means you can get up and walk. You can get up and go someplace. And when you're ambulatory, you can carry out stuff out in the world. I heard some liberals are resorting to buying guns. I'm sure that there's always some of that. You know what I mean? Yeah, but Trump is bad for the gun business because they think their guns are safe. No. Poster art supply is way up. Yeah. Glitter glue is going through the roof. Keep your Freedom Caucus hands off of my government Medicare for freedom. Increase in black and LGBT people buying guns. Yeah. That group the ones who buy guns in those two groups aren't that different year to year. The people, it hasn't, yeah. I didn't talk about Gorsuch because I think they're going to filibuster him. I'm more interested. We'll talk about him as the filibuster continues, but I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I don't think he's getting through. At least I hope not. I do think that they have grounds to say that while the president is being under investigation for by the FBI, it makes no sense to confirm a lifetime appointment. I think Schumer, who I'm not always a fan of, made an excellent point about that. I think it will hold. The filibuster might, but you could do all kinds of other things to do that. There's other options. That's why they've never had to. The Republicans never really had to filibuster anybody. So we can employ that strategy for almost every issue. But if the Republicans continue to do stuff like they did the health care bill, we won't have to. They're eating themselves. And the more that can happen, the better. And like I said, remember when I was talking about having a victory lap? Remember when I was saying that the Democrats, when the president says something that actually we agree with because he's trying to appeal to everyone because he's that kind of a sycophantic maniac, when he does that stuff, the Democrats should say, I think that's lovely. I think that's exactly something we should go for. As a matter of fact, we were working on something like that. We'd love to present him with a bill where he can sign that right now that would instigate that very thing that he's talking. He wants to buy across state lines to improve Obamacare during the time that it's in. We've got a bill that will allow that. We'd love to get that on the floor. If the president wants to see it, that makes it impossible for Paul Ryan to do anything and bring any of the president's ideas to the floor because someone in that caucus will be against it. That very well may be what happens, Carl. You can't. Again, that's the difference between the persistence and the resistance. Resistance just hates everybody, it wants to be against the president for the sake of being against the president. But what you have to do is have a strategy that's against him because he's an egomaniac and his followers think the sun shines out of his ass. Everything they said about Obama and us believing that he was like some sort of messianic figure is true about them and Trump because they were projecting this entire time. I'm back. I think I'm back. Okay, good. I think I'm here. Anyways, I don't know when it blocked out. I just looked up and saw that the red arrow was gone. Am I back? Am I here? Can you see me? Yes. Hey, there you go. Wi-Fi gate. That's exactly it. Yeah. You know what's funny is I'm being in Baltimore. I have half a mind to drive down and have pizza at Comet Ping Pong right now. Like we should. I think that might be a good idea. And then just tweet Alex Jones a picture of us giving the finger. That's yeah, I think so. I think that's a good idea. I think I'm gonna. We drove down to DC yesterday, anyways. It's totally fine. I want to go back down today, and my show's at 7:30. I got about 5 hours to kill in between here, so don't ask for the basement seat. That's right. Don't ask for the kids menu. I think it's the trick. Do you have a children's menu? Fuck off. They don't even. I bet they don't even. For the time being, they probably got rid of it. Oh my god. Yeah, we should selfie just the two of us, like me and Charlene, doing that in front of the place, and tweet it to Alex Jones. Yeah. So I agree. I don't believe in complacency. I believe in mockery. I believe in you present your ideas and because we're dealing with a delicate ego, you make fun of these idiots. Hardcore, nonstop, brutal mockery. Never about anything you can't physically change. Never anything about the children, and never anything about ancillary people that aren't involved in the campaign. The good thing is he brought his entire family in, and they're all joining the fight. So, as much as he wants to give Ivanka a free position in the government without any kind of salary, but therefore no recourse also to operate. Now, granted, she keeps him on a short leash, so it's great, Tom. Yeah. I think it opens her up for all kinds of criticism or whatever. I don't have any real desire to do that, but her whole, running a family business and profiting off the entire thing, I think it's important. So, but mockery has to just be, it's why Stephen Colbert is being successful right now. It's why Seth is also doing as well in the, as far as late night goes. And it's eaten Jimmy Fallon's ratings almost entirely. So I'm all for it. I tweeted that Pike comment or whatever. A couple of silly songs did more to bring down Edward II than all the deacons of the church. Double pooperoni. Yeah. How about everyone in Dining Twitters? A simple tweet, Putin's puppet. Think about that. Really? Yes, it would. And I like doing, I do my little graphics every so often. I got this, word bubble. It's an app that I downloaded, and I've been using it quite a bit lately, if you've noticed. It's called, where is it? Is it on my other iPad? It's like Thought Bubble, essentially. There's a bunch of different ones if you want to use one. But this is what happens when you got multiple iPads for different work. Because I have a work iPad and then I have a travel reading one because I burn the batteries down. But the one I'm using lately is called Speech Bubbles. It's the one I used to do the little cartoon thing I did for them discussing women's issues yesterday or day before yesterday. I find it highly effective for answering those kind of things. So I just if a photo comes up of Ryan or anything, I just download it and pop something in. I think Drift Glass, Rocky Mountain Mike, Carl, I think a lot of you guys who are more, adept at that kind of stuff, if you want to give it a pass, I think more the merrier. But, man, you could just let them have it. It's great. Good job, Maureen. Yeah. This dude just, thin skin with extra fat. Ew. Nice, Amos. This dude just, he is so delicate that you have to understand that's his Achilles heel. That's his weakness. And you got to let him have it that way. He hates ugly pictures of himself. So, so grab them and download them and speech bubble them or just send them back to him. All you have to do is send him a picture of himself that he hates every so often in his feed. It'll drive him nuts. So anyways, I got to run. We're going to go down to Comet Ping Pong and have some pizza today. I think that's a great idea. I want to see if Charlene's awake and ready to go. See if she'd like to do it. I ran into Steph at an event, and I'm going to be visiting her show again very soon in the near future. So maybe as early as week after next. I'm in New York this week, so I'll be on John Fugelsang's show. I'm also going to be on Dave Hill's show on Monday night, and then I'll be back in LA later in the week. And from that, I will be able to I'll make a drop by on her show and say hi. I think this is a good year to start up, who knows, start up hump days again, or at least have some resurgence of that because it's really necessary in the climate, that kind of stuff. So we'll see what we can do. But you guys are awesome. I'm not doing a show in New York. I have meetings there with a bunch of different companies and that kind of stuff. It's all developmental stuff that I'm doing work-wise, isn't for acting, writing, and developing shows that I'm doing. And I have to kind of cram all those into one New York trip because I'm busy otherwise. So anyways, you guys are awesome. Thanks for sticking around. In future, if you want, I'll do more of these kind of like, now that I know how to play audio and it actually plays through, I'll see if I can find a way to get the audio slightly louder. I'll be able to do some of those. But we'll, well, Billy, if I do, I don't know if Dave Hill's show is done in a studio or in front of anybody, because his live show is done in front of a crowd at UCB. If I find out any about that, I'll tweet about it. Because I'd certainly love for everybody to come down and say hi and that kind of stuff. Maybe I'll do a tweet up or something. It's been ages since I've done one of those. So maybe just an external Bluetooth speaker for your. That's not a bad idea. Yeah. I do have an external Bluetooth speaker I travel with, so we'll figure that out. Thank you, Carl. It's a great idea. Carl. Great work, Carl. Carl. It's just for the clips that I was playing, or the Alex Jones clip that I was playing, because if I play it directly from the audio on the computer and find a way to make it louder, it'll be in sync. If I don't, then there'll be a delay, and it's just weird to watch. And why not just play the audio in a picture, which is just disgusting anyway. So, awesome. Well, thanks, Carl. You and I will always be tech nerds together. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. You guys are wonderful. Just so you know, I don't think. Let's see. I don't know who all made it in here. All I'm going to say is one of our own who wasn't today is dealing with an illness in the family, so send her some love if you know who I'm talking about. And we will talk to you guys later. Be well, take care of yourselves, and take care of somebody else. This is the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide, signing out. All right.